funny enough, while I may know what day of the week it is, if you asked me what today's date was, I would not tell you. Are we in the middle of the month, the end of the month? Actually, not the end of the month because I know that's when rent is due. But today's different because it is my nephew's birthday and it happens to also be the day that I had my LLC made. And funny enough, both are 2 years old right now. So I thought the best way to honor this lovely anniversary is to share some of the things that I've learned along my lovely journey of building my business through tweets. If there's anything to know about me, is that I am a Twitter stan, not an X fan. And the first lesson, and probably the biggest, is this one: control what you can control, and the rest will be taken care of. Now, let me tell you, this bad boy of a lesson, of a cycle that I have been on for most of my life at this point, has been the biggest change that I have noticed, especially as I've been building this business. When you are building something so new and so true to yourself, that requires you to release control. That requires you to be in flow. That requires you to learn new things and to get rid of the old paradigm of thinking that got you to this place, because being an entrepreneur is a whole different ball game that really gets you to start seeing yourself a lot differently. And the reason that I say that is because when you initially start building your own business, a lot of times people go in it with the idea that they're going to have a bunch of free time, that they can have all this freedom for themselves now, that they can live this life. However, coming at it from that kind of individualistic frame or lens is very limiting and also allows you to kind of fall into the traps of, listening to these gurus and trying to make a quick buck and really just burning yourself out and not creating anything sustainable. Because what you'll find is that when you start using these tactics that they put online as ways of generating passive income, or these marketing tactics and all these hooks, you'll realize that you are exerting so much control by following these other people's templates, and it won't land. You may get a few hits, you may get a few clients, but it is not sustainable enough for you to feel comfortable creating a whole life around that for more than probably 2 or 3 years. Not only do you have to release control when it comes to building the business and how you're doing it and the outcome of the work you've been doing, it also requires you to release the control around the image that you portray or what others say about you. Even like when you get those rejections from people, it really has to be something that is so internally focused that allows you to relinquish the need to be perfect, the need to show up in a certain way, or to feel like you have to be someone that you're really not. And while I can sit here and say this with a big smile on my face, like this wasn't a big problem for me, because it was, I can just confidently say that this has been the biggest adjustment to my overall quality of life. Because what I found was, while we could always do that internal work of kind of addressing some of our self limiting beliefs around the need to show up a certain way, or thinking that someone's answer is a direct reflection of our character, it also really requires you to address your fear based thinking. And let me tell you, that shit hurted because I didn't know how fearful I was. And I didn't realize how much fear was dictating the actions, the choices, even down to the decisions I made for myself, for my business, even the opportunities I pursued, the way that I put myself out there. And it was mind boggling, honestly. I was like, damn, you're a little bitch. My bad. In summary, the TikTok girlies were right, and all those self help motivational speakers had a point, because the moment you are able to relinquish control is when things actually start coming towards you. When that flow and abundance starts pouring over you, and you ask yourself, why do I always make my life so goddamn difficult? Lesson number 2 is brought to you by this lovely tweet saying, I'd love to unclench my jaw someday. And you may be asking yourself, Manny, girl, what are you on right now? How does this have anything to do with being a business owner? And hear me out for a second. Because over the past 2 years, I have noticed a drastic change in my overall body, as well as the typical tension areas of stress that I had kind of diminishing. And that blew my mind because I thought for a lot of my life that I was just always gonna be like this, and I was also gonna have a little hump on my back. But no, girl. And you know what saved me? Breath work. I always used to read that we would keep and hold on to a lot of stress in our body. But it wasn't until I started doing breath work daily where I started to actually feel all the tension in my body. And as I committed to doing that every day, or maybe a few times a day because a girl was stressed, I started to realize how my traps went from up here to down here. My jaw was unclenched, right? And I was able to breathe deeper. It always felt like I was kind of reaching for air sometimes when I would get anxious. And now my anxiety is an indicator that I need to take a moment to kind of just release all the tension that's not necessary. Breathwork is amazing because for the first time ever, I was able to bring presence and awareness to different parts of my body that I never really felt before. And it was really helpful because it was now an indicator, as I said. So if I had a stressful meeting or if I got an email that made me feel some type of way, I'm able to immediately notice that because my body tenses up. And when it tenses up, then I have to ask myself, why? What's going on, girl? In summary, our jaw, our shoulders, our traps hold on to so much anxiety and so much tension. And they're years of built up tension, right? It's not comfortable. But by turning to breath work or other mindfulness practices that allow you to open up your being and to also be able to have presence and awareness to tension spots, you're able to start using those as kind of signals for how to move better, how to discern between opportunities, how to know when to take a chill pill and relax. And the third tweet, and probably one of my favorites, is this: born to be a hater, but forced to understand where you're coming from. Because let's be honest, a lot of us are haters. I'm here for the light and love, baby, all the time. But when you are a business owner, it really is a wake up call of some sorts because you go into this world so confidently and believing in your capabilities and thinking that what you're doing is so novel that you kind of get hit with reality, and you have to take a step back and understand that everyone has their own perception of their reality and of their situation, of their problem. And so instead of coming at it and saying, I know exactly how to fix you or help you, you really have to allow them to guide you to that place. Because 9 out of 10 times, they don't even know what they need. And so it's kind of on you to be on this journey with them to help them figure that out, because that is the best way that you're able to provide a solution, a product for someone, right? Is honestly being able to step into their shoes, speak their language, really even start feeling what they're feeling. And on top of that, when things don't necessarily go your way, or if you're passed up on an opportunity, then you're able to really take a step back and be like, it's not a me thing, it's an X, Y, and Z thing. And just allows you to just realize that so much of what you do doesn't necessarily guarantee the greatest outcome, right? And I think that we've been a little sugar coated in terms of our perceived effort and the result of that. So, really, at the end of the day, being a hater is all fun and stuff, but you gotta understand where people are coming from in order to make that moolah. Welcome to part 2 of me sharing 10 lessons that I have learned over the past 2 years while building my business, and of course, through tweets. Lessons 1 through 3 and their corresponding tweets are in the other video, so feel free to check those out. Now we start off with lesson 4, which is brought to you by this lovely tweet. Who up battling unseen forces on company time? Now, let's be honest, we all use company time for our own personal use because why not? We deserve that. Capitalism sucks. We get it. But speaking from my experience, the unseen forces that I had to kind of battle through in the past 2 years really had hands. They were knocking me left and right, but it was very critical for me to kind of navigate through that emotional landscape and realize that my emotions are really helpful. They're signals, they're not triggers, and I am able to move through them while still kind of getting my to dos done. Prior to that, I would just kind of sit in my emotions and wallow or allow them to kind of make me untethered. It could be just one little hiccup in an email that I may have done a typo in. Next thing you know, I'm crashing out. But what has actually helped me in my battle with these unseen forces is to slow down, which sounds counterintuitive, but at least hear me out. Because what I have found was that we've been very conditioned to be constantly on the go, to hit those deadlines, to hit the metrics, to constantly allow something outside of us to dictate the flow of the work that we do and how we show up in that. And in kind of creating my business, I really tried to replicate that sense of time again, or way of operating. And what I ended up finding is that I was bypassing a lot of my body's signals to slow down, to assess an opportunity before I said yes, to feel my way through my work and establish my own connection and meaning to it, instead of turning to these very rigid forms or structures of building your business. And when it comes to creating your business, especially if it's something that you want to be true to you, you have to feel your way through versus bypassing, which I was doing all the time, right? I didn't care how I felt because at the end of the day, I had to get something out of the door by end of day, or else Sally is gonna say some passive aggressive stuff to me, and I hate passive aggressive stuff. And what I have found is that when you start slowing down, you're kind of met with a lot more fears because you realize how much time kind of dictated the fear based thinking that you had. And at least in my case, it felt like I was running up against a clock. Like it always felt like I was falling behind, that, Samantha over here just launched her fifth product and I'm only on my first one. And I had to learn how to trust in my own timing and to have faith that I will get the thing done, or that I'm able to intentionally show up in these ways and hopefully call in things that feel more aligned to me rather than cookie cutter and trying to fit into a mold. So, in summary, even if these unseen forces have hands, your hands are better. And on top of that, you get to really create your own relationship to time and hopefully find a pace that feels good while being productive and hitting that bank. Now, on to lesson 5, or tweet number 5, which says this: all my crash outs be valid. No regrets. I actually should have done more. I second that to the moon, 1,000%. Because there's so many situations outside of just business building that really warranted a crash out. Like, not even a crash out, like a fist fight, like meet me outside. Because I didn't realize how unfair, or at least unbalanced, a lot of my relationships were. And how I was overgiving, constantly there for people, or at least trying to be there for people, and really just giving them the opportunities that I received because I wanted to be a good person and support them. Now, if you asked me what I received from people, man, that shit is nothing. I only say this with a little salt on my wounds because I really had to take a lot of my rose colored glasses off and see people for who they truly were. And it sucked because I like to think that everyone's amazing. And what I didn't realize was all of the times in which I have allowed people to treat me however they did treat me, or be dismissive about their offhanded comment. I was reinforcing this relationship where I just took their shit and they thought that they could just treat me like that. But what's surprising is that when you're building this business and others in your life are not, that's really when you start realizing who is your real friend versus who is just an ops. Because the moment they see you do something that they are unable to do, that, is typically something that people fear, then they start asking you, who do you think you are? And let me tell you, once I get that phrase, or once I feel like they're trying to stuff me back into a box, that is when I run. That's when I flee. That's when I say, that's it. That was your third strike or 10th strike, and you're out. And in the process of creating my business, as I said, I had to reevaluate so many different relationships. And also, for the first time in a really long time, ask myself, how do I want to receive love? Who are the type of people I want to surround myself with? And also, ultimately, what is it that I'm able to provide them, or what boundaries am I able to kind of construct so that we can have a healthy relationship? Because I would get lost in people. I am a Pisces rising. That's what we do. We enmesh with people, we become one with them. I could keep going, but you know what I mean. So, in summary, crash out on those people, man. I'm giving you the green flag, because if you have gotten to that point of feeling that fed up and you feel like you're a very like level-headed person, that's your body's last kind of resort to be like, get out of here, please. Like, we cannot handle this disrespect anymore. Now, let's change gears into something a little bit more optimistic and dreamy, aka my whole vibe. Lesson 6 is brought to you by this lovely tweet that says, faith it till you make it. And let me tell you, she's on to something, y'all. And I find this funny because the name of my business is related to faith. It's the Somali term for being divinely guided. And prior to the creation of my business, Faith and I were never in the same room. I really lived in this victim mindset where I thought the world was against me, and I always had to tell myself that I'd have to work twice as hard to get half of what someone else has. And never once did I thought that there was another entity that was playing a hand in all of this. And I grew up religious, so yes, I do believe in God, but for some reason, I just thought I was on God's shit list, and he would always sign me up to be one of his toughest soldiers, but then I just get punished at the end of it. But what I have found out is that having faith, especially along the path of you doing the thing that you want to do, is a freaking superpower, a saving grace. Like, that's my girl now. We're like this. And as this tweet says, faith it until you make it. Faith is something that is a conscious decision every day to have faith and to kind of take action from that place, and knowing that you are doing the thing that feels good to you, and at some point it will come back, right? It's this idea of moving sight unseen, and really allowing yourself to now enjoy the process and see it as more of a transformational discovery thing rather than a punishment of highlighting all of your failures and having to pick yourself back up each time. And what really helped me kind of establish a stronger connection to faith was to actually document the whole process. I'm not gonna lie, it really helped me to see how far or how much I grew, as well as all the things that I never thought I'd be able to do just easily happening, or all the little like serendipitous moments of my life. Like, it really showed me that there was another entity, that God was there helping me. And so long as I believed in myself and I took an action from a place of that, then I felt really good. Okay, bye. Welcome to part 3 of me sharing 10 lessons that I have learned in the time of building my business. Go watch parts 1 and 2 if you want to see lessons 1 through 6. Now, starting with lesson 7, brought to you by this lovely tweet that says, first, you're unrealistic, then you're the blueprint. And let me tell you, my Aquarius moon loves to think she's unique. So this one was one that I kind of felt from the jump, because I knew what I was doing was very different from typical brand marketing strategy. I knew that I wanted to stick to people's stories, and I knew that I wanted to extract it in a way that may be a bit unconventional. And it has proven success. It's felt good to me. It's felt great for my clients. And while I have been doing that, and of course sharing my concepts and frameworks with people, you get hit with a lot of questions and a lot of resistance as well as judgment. Because I do truly feel like we have become a society that really doesn't want to put in the work anymore to do the things that we want to do. We copy each other's frameworks and ways of being. We try to simplify the process of something that is meant to be beautiful and magical and healing and transformational. And when the going gets tough, we just really start kind of dropping everything that we've learned, and we're kind of going back to our old ways of our old grinding away until you find an answer, when in reality, your whole kind of creation of your business is mainly around you coming into yourself. And as you're coming into yourself, you are bringing pieces of yourself into your business, into your work, supporting your clients as well. But a lot of people, especially those that don't have their business, do not see it as that, right? They just see you as a different service provider or a different entity that's selling a product. But in reality, you are a vehicle of creation, of a transmission from God or source, right? And so it is on us to be a proper vehicle for that message, for what it is that we are creating, and to see it as a sacred process, not something that is scalable or is a quick fix to get you a certain income every month. So, in summary, create your own path. Actually spend time developing your craft, your skill sets, not just as a way of monetizing it, but as a way of building a business or a life around the things that bring you fulfillment and around your own journey as well. Now, lesson number 8 is brought to you by this lovely tweet that says, "Unfortunately, I don't think before I speak, so I am just as shocked as you are." Sis, let me tell you. At this point, there are things and noises that come out of me that I have just allowed myself to accept, because this whole process of creating your business is becoming the most authentic, true version of yourself. And that requires you embracing all of your quirks. And I know that I can be very eloquent, but my whole delivery style is to shock you at the end so that it can actually integrate. And a lot of the times, you have to learn how to be comfortable talking on the fly. And that requires you to A, know yourself pretty well on what you can and can't deliver from a business perspective, but also understand what you are willing to tolerate versus not. Because I have found that when you are a business owner, people say the most out of pocket thing to you because they think that if they're paying you, that they can do and say whatever they want because they're paying you. And I've had clients where I had to literally tell them that I do not have a dollar sign on my face and that I am a human being. So it looks like we're both shocking each other. But at the end of the day, I'm shocking you with value and you're shocking me with your projections. I'm just saying. So, in summary, allow yourself to experiment with your voice. Allow yourself to mess up and not be perfect in the way that you speak or what you say to people, how you say it to people, because it is a learning journey and it is really important for you to come into your own and to understand, as I said, what you're willing to tolerate from people, how they speak to you, even the energy that they approach with you. Tweet number 9, or lesson 9, my bad, is brought to you by this lovely tweet that says, "You'll be fighting for your life financially, and that's when all your toiletries finish at the same time." And let me tell you, that's where I'm currently at right now. And I'm not saying that this is a unique experience that only business owners have, because I know I had this forever and for a while. But this is mainly around my money management. Even saying that hurt because for a really long time, I didn't know what a budget was. I was just swiping my card left and right. And when I went into business, I had credit card debt. I didn't even think about the fact that I should probably be smart and pay that off and have some sort of savings for rainy days or seasons or years. But I just thought to myself that it should be quick, it should be easy to make money because that's what we are sold online. And I would stick up both of my middle fingers to all of those gurus out there that led me down that wrong path. But my mom's watching this. Hi, Mom, so I can't. But the overall message of this lesson and tweet is that it is so important for you to have not only a healthy relationship to money, right? Because your scarcity mindset will come up, but it's to also start establishing a connection and a meaning to the things that you purchase or invest in for yourself in your life. Because in my season of brokenness, I had to really be intentional with where and how I was spending my money. And I had to ask myself, all these products and this lifestyle I created for myself, if that is actually me or if it's things that I picked up from other people or trends online. And I felt like 90% of everything I owned wasn't really because I wanted it, it was just to fit in. Like, I'd spend a lot of money on certain brands because I wanted to assimilate, right? And we realized at the end of the day, I just needed this core thing from this product, and I was able to save a lot of money from it. And funny enough, toiletries are pretty high on my list because I really have to feel good every day in order to show up this way, right? Because regardless of how much work I do on myself and how confident and optimistic I am about my future, life throws stuff at you. Every day on this business journey, you get hit with something new, you discover something new about yourself. And it's really important to have these everyday items that you can turn to that you know will make you feel good. Like, I know that I can go to my scented lotion and put it on my body as a way of relaxing myself after a tense meeting because I spent that time creating that connection, right? And it is beautiful to now have that relationships with my products to the point where maybe not this time because I was a little busy with life, but to the point where I know that they're about to run out and I'm about to get the toiletries before they all go out. And last but not least, lesson 10 is brought to you by this lovely tweet. It's an interesting experience to be living in a world that's getting uglier by the day, but also to be walking a spiritual path that's becoming more beautiful with each passing day. That was a little bit of a mouthful, but in essence, it is a beautiful message that kind of carries this double edged sword thing. Because when you go into this business of creating your work, you come at it again from a very individualistic perspective, thinking about how much money you can make and what lifestyle you want. But in reality, to have something sustainable that's built on a good foundation, that requires you to switch who is kind of benefiting from all this work. Because at the end of the day, it's not you, it's those people that you are in service of. But it is your duty to do the work in order to show up as this steward, as this example of someone who was able to go into the shadows and work through all that murkiness to bring out the light. And when you're able to see yourself in this position, it allows you to feel like, A, you're doing something that's helping, right? At least you're helping the people who you touch online, who you support in person, but you're also helping others envision a better future for themselves. So that was it. And I hope you guys enjoyed these lovely 10 lessons. And let me know what you think. Okay, bye.